I'm Liz Brown Swanson. It is April 6th, and you are watching the virtual edition of Scoop Manchester. And joining me now from Manchester is my co-host and the publisher of the Manchester Cricket, Erika Brown, who also is my cousin-in-law. And hi, Erika. I know you're ready to give us the scoop right now, life in Manchester in the wake of the coronavirus epidemic. And right now, this is just our new way of life. I'm sheltering in place here in California. I'm stuck here. And now, you're at the cricket working around the clock, trying to get the newspaper out. So you have life-saving information you're sharing now. But just for starters, how are you doing and your cricket team and of course your family?
Well, I think it's probably the same across the country. We're doing what we can. Everyone is being really just, they're just going along and living the new normal. And they're kind of doing the right thing. Nobody's really complaining. Everyone's just doing what they're supposed to be doing and sheltering in place. Our family's no different. And my three kids, I have two at home, one still at school. At college, she petitioned successfully to stay there, but the boys are home. My husband, we're all working from home and we're all just doing our thing.
And you're all staying healthy.
We're all staying healthy. Yeah. As a matter of fact, my husband, Rusty, got sick about maybe 6 weeks ago, and really sick actually. And he had just gotten over it before the whole sort of coronavirus thing kind of came through. So.
Well, they say, because Rusty, of course, is my cousin, that him and I have a lot of similarities. And of course, you know that I also got really sick. And I'm so thankful. I just have a cough left, but, for everyone out there that's worried and they're feeling they've got flu symptoms, it is scary. I had, actually for me, I think it was the very kind of the beginning of March. It was when the LA Marathon was happening. I happened to go to a birthday party. There were a lot of people there. People weren't social distancing yet, but it was kind of just getting there. And a few days after, I came home with the heavy, the fever, lost my sense of smell, my taste. I was in bed for days. And the interesting thing was I couldn't get tested because of the fact that unfortunately, I didn't have distressful breathing. I don't know how Rusty did with that, but I mean, I just curled up in bed, drank a lot of water, and, got through it, and then got word that, in fact, a lot of people from the party got sick, those that got tested, and in fact, there was someone that passed. And I was in self-quarantine. My husband was, keeping many feet away and just washing my hands all the time. And it's taken me about 3 weeks, really. I feel myself finally. And as we're doing this interview now, I still have a slight cough, but I think I've licked it. One last thing is I told you I couldn't get tested at the time. And, but LA County here did finally, there's a lot more, I don't know what the testing situation is like for you back there. You can tell me about that. But here there was such a shortage of kits like everywhere that I didn't qualify. And then they opened it up. So my husband and I actually last week, we went to a drive-up test site here in LA County. And, we drove through. It was really interesting how they organized it. Everybody was all suited up. Your windows had to stay up in the car. And they put through the window. In fact, I have footage so I can show it. They handed us, a plastic bag sealed up, and then we swabbed and put that back. And I'm actually still waiting to hear.
You had to self-administer.
It's a self-administered test.
Interesting.
So,
didn't you kind of track with people who were at the party, and so that was kind of helpful because you could say, "Oh, this happened to me," and then, "Oh yeah, that happened to me too."
The interesting thing is, and of course, we all know we're watching the news daily, and the information changes. But I did, and there was. I think at the end there was maybe about 9 or 10 people that tested positive from the party. But some of those, like me, that couldn't qualify for testing, we did. Every day I'd be on the phone and we'd say, "Oh, my fever's 101 today. Oh, my fever's gone today. Oh, I lost my," and a few of us tracked incredibly together. And then in fact, one of the gentlemen who was on our track got better. And then he's the one that ended up in the hospital on a respirator. And I'm so sad, he was 75 and he passed. So very tough. It's just, we all know this is a life and death situation for everybody in the world. And we got to take it seriously. You got to keep that social distancing. I know, look at us virtually talking. And even if I was in Manchester, we wouldn't be in the same room probably. Probably want to be near me right now. But anyway, so will you just tell us, I miss my hometown and being with my peeps. Describe life right now in Manchester, how the community's doing. The residents are dealing with this living a COVID-19 world.
Yeah, it's one thing that's amazing is how quickly everything has changed and how quickly everything has gotten to where it's going. And so you can sort of project where it's kind of happening. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I think the cases were statewide, they were 164 cases, and there were 6 cases in Essex County. As of yesterday, there were almost 12,000 cases in the state with 1,400. So from 6 in Essex County to 1,400 today, which is amazing. In Manchester, things have been pretty steady in the last week or so. We have 5 cases that have happened in town total. 2 of them have moved off the rolls. They've actually gone through enough days with no symptoms and no aid with medicine to essentially be kind of taken off. 3 are active right now, and that's going to change. I mean, it'll change week to week, and we'll get updates. In terms of just life and people, downtown is kind of settled into its new normal, as I mentioned kind of with before. You've got sort of the essential businesses that are kind of really functioning. That would be, I would say that's like Crosby's Market. Very interesting. Crosby's now has shopping for people over 60 from in the morning. They kind of do that in the morning, which is really kind of helpful to kind of just give people, what helps people is getting an expectation of they know what the deal is. So, okay, at Crosby's, that's what it's going to be. When you go inside the supermarket now, you wouldn't believe it. There's now markings on the floor of 6 feet apart for lines for the cashier. And as I mentioned, everyone is really kind of, there's no, people are being really nice to each other. They're being pretty patient. There are some sort of struggles of, what's the social etiquette for walking downtown and on the sidewalk, and that's kind of an interesting thing to watch. But anyway, so that's Crosby's. Then we also have Allen's Pharmacy, which is now closed to retail traffic, but you can call ahead. And Jay from Allen's has a system now where you actually get a number assigned to you. You call in your order, you get a number assigned to you, you pull up, you call inside, say you're there, and then you put the number up in the window, and they come out with, I mean, anything from candy to your prescription drugs. Manchester Hardware is also one of those businesses that's like really kind of essential and up and running. And then everything else is kind of interesting, where people are doing their own thing, and some of it feels very normal, and some of it feels like it's kind of special. Like normal, I would say, Amy at Style Snoop is still having her Facebook kind of presentations from Style Snoop, and she was doing that before. So in that way, it's kind of the same. Things like Helen's Bottle Shop is now sort of doing delivery of wine, which is really interesting. And Mari had a sale last week. But she just did it online, and you could tune in. So that felt kind of normal, and yet it was in a new format. So
I know.
Their own thing.
I know, as you know, I'm also part of the business community. We have our 4 Beach Gifts and Goodies. My sisters are there holding down the fort, and they're repainting. And this is also an opportunity to get, do our spring cleaning, so to speak. We are also, like, I know Cuttlefish, everybody's closed, a lot of the businesses, but they are offering shopping services privately. I know we got a couple emails this week that people want to get a gift where you can order things and put an order in, but everybody's adjusting. And of course, I know your restaurants, they're all doing the takeout in town, like everybody's doing here. And just, I'm also curious, so like for just recreation, we're a very active town. People can walk and be out, right? Those are the rules, but no, there's no stopping at the beach, or what's happening with that?
Yeah, no, 2 weeks ago, and the BOS had essentially over 2 days, suddenly everything became what it is today. On Sunday, 2 weeks ago, the BOS had an emergency meeting.
Which is Board of Selectmen, not that everybody knows that.
They had an emergency meeting. It was their very first virtual meeting, so just like this, they had it, and it followed all the public notice rules and also the public participation rules, which was interesting. They declared all of the public, the town properties were closed. So that's Singing Beach, Black and White Beach, Tux Point, and then also all the parks, Masconomo Park closed, etc. And really it was from something that at the time felt like it was a little bit preemptive, but now it's really relevant, which is they were really concerned that the first responders, if they were running around trying to regulate compliance, then what happens when people get actually sick, especially if some of the first responders become sick themselves? And now we're living in a world just 2 weeks later where that's really happening. You really read a lot of stories about how it's really hitting first responders in a really disproportionate way. So in that way, the Board of Selectmen they were being really, really properly preemptive. They were planning properly.
Right. Now, I know in the town hall, one of the ways you're getting the information out is Manchester has a communications coordinator, Tiffany Marletta, who's just came on board 4 months ago. I know you work with her as the reporter in town, getting information from the town. So you were great. You thought of this today, which was nice to bring her in to the conversation. So she can explain just exactly how the town is getting information out. So let's see if we can get Tiffany to join us here on Zoom. And I know like you said, you've been working with her. Yes.
Yes, she's fantastic. She started I think it's about 4 months ago. We should get her to clarify, but she started 4 months ago, having no idea, as any of us would be, that this is what she'd be doing now. So it was very timely that the town determined that, they decided late last year that they wanted to have somebody really have sort of this central management role for communicating out to the town. And sure enough, she's here and she's fantastic.
Okay, Erica, so it's great. We now have Tiffany Marletta joining us here on Scoop Manchester. Thanks for taking the time out. You are the coordinator, the communication coordinator for the town of Manchester by the Sea. Congratulations, by the way, Tiffany, on getting this position. I know you're the first one to have the job, and I think you started 4 months ago, so I hope you're doing well. But basically, you're the one that's now in charge in helping the town getting all this COVID-19 information out to the community, to the town. Tell me how it's going.
Well, it's certainly been a very busy month. Facts have been changing on a daily basis, and we're doing our best to communicate new decisions, new changes to the community as fast as we can, and we're really trying hard to reach everybody in all demographics. So
I know that actually last week you were helpful. You were helpful in actually essentially assembling and then announcing sort of this central kind of engine of communication out to the community about the specifics from town hall to the public and to residents about COVID. Can you tell us about that? I know that it has to do with, it essentially is assembling things that were already being done, but doing it in a more scheduled, more proactive manner. Can you tell me about that?
Sure, yes. So last week we came together. The situation with COVID-19 has changed at a rapid pace, and we felt like we needed to take a pause. And once we became a positive town, as far as having the first positive case of COVID-19, we really wanted to put the residents at ease in knowing how, where, and when they can receive updates from the town on what's going on, and just have a clear expectation that we can present them with in a central location that they can find out the facts. There's so much information being put out right now everywhere you look, and we just wanted people in Manchester to know where to go when they have questions about town functioning and how this might impact their daily lives here. So.
Right. I know the town hall, of course, is closed. Everything is closed, but you're going into work, I'm assuming, right? Or do you get to work from home? I'm not sure.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Well, what about in terms of the kind of information that you're putting? I know on the town of Manchester's website and social media. Like, what is the information that you want to get out in the message to the residents?
Yeah. So the primary locations that we're using to communicate is our website, manchester.mass.us. And when you hit the homepage, you'll see an icon that says, COVID Information Center. There's an icon you can click on. There's also a link at the top of the website that says COVID Information Center, and that will take you to the same page. And every announcement, every declaration, any change that's been made in the town is located on that page, and residents can scroll down and look for the piece of information they need and read about it.
Right.
And inform themselves. So.
I know, Erika, reading about it, I think on the front page of this recent Cricket edition, you had the town administrator. The article was titled like "Settling In in life right now, right? In Manchester, people are settling in.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting, people are settling in for sure. But one of the things that, we certainly see at the paper is that residents, what they really want is they want predictability. They want to know that within, is the information I'm interested in within reach when I want it? And so one of the things that, I mean, we have every week in the paper, we have the town administrator's report. Since COVID's happened, and has become sort of, I love, Tiffany, the way you said a positive, a case positive town. We move that column to the front page every week. We run it online. We also update our numbers every day because the state comes out with its numbers every day at about 4 o'clock. We're able to get that, and we update that on the site. But that's when it occurs to people that they want to know what's going on in Essex County. What's good about the town is that the Board of Health last week, and I was in that meeting, that virtual meeting last week, when they decided that the town would put it out proactively once a week, I believe it is, Tiffany?
Correct, on Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays for the town specifically.
Because the information is changing so rapidly, Tiffany, what about how the town monitors what's going on? Because it keeps changing. Like, I'm not even sure now, are we all supposed to wear masks in public? Are you putting that kind of information out?
Right. Every day, every week, the Board of Selectmen are meeting and the Board of Health. And every day I'm in communication with all of those individuals. And every week Town Hall is meeting virtually as a staff because every department is affected as well, whether it's, collecting taxes or DPW and what's going on with trash and is it still being picked up? Different questions people, residents have every day. So we are all working together and I'm helping get those messages out as they happen, using social media and the website primarily and the Cricket. Erika's been so helpful in helping us push those important messages out as well. So, and we also started a newsletter as well. So it's quarterly right now, but I'm hoping that it's reaching those residents that may not be online as much, our older population.
Right. Well, both the Cricket and the Town Hall, you're like the lifelines to the community because everybody is pretty much trying to shelter in place, but they want to be in the know, and there's no better way than to get it as local as possible. We all watch the news all day long, but in the end, you've got the information that's really probably the most valuable that can help guide the community to navigate this. And but I'm curious the challenges for you, and I know like sort of what prepared you for this kind of a job. I mean, this is a lot to be able to be on top of this.
Yes, who knew? Probably all of us are saying the same thing in every job. I think it's definitely a unique situation that none of us have ever been through and uncharted waters. But I do have a background in public relations and I was working on that, September 11th, sitting at my desk when the country and the world changed. So I've navigated unfortunate situations before, and I'm just hopeful. I know that we will rise through this, and but just want to effectively get that important information out. I'm working really hard to do that. So
the other thing is you're a resident as well. I mean,
yes,
I am. So it's not as if you're communicating to sort of a resident base that you're not very, very familiar with. Your kids are in the school system. Your husband grew up in town, so.
Yes. Yeah.
And how is that going? How are you juggling all this and with having your kids are at home?
Yeah, it's definitely been a little more of a challenge to play the role of school teacher and communications coordinator and mom and everything else. But it's an interesting time. I have a daughter in each of the schools, ironically, in Memorial School, the middle school, and the high school. And I really give the school district a lot of credit. They've done a great job giving the parents the information that we need. And they're sort of my coworkers now. We all sit together and do our work.
Because so much you could share with us, Tiffany, but I'm just curious, any particular messages or announcements, today's April 6th, we're filming this on April 6th today, that you want to share with the town of Manchester that, we didn't hit upon, that it's important that you get that message out.
Yes. Follow the website, follow our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook page for the most current up-to-date information. Read the Cricket, follow the Cricket, and just every Wednesday we will be putting out updated information on COVID-19 cases in the town. But on a daily basis, we will be pushing out information as needed to the residents that they need to know about. So,
all right. Well, I don't know if you have one last follow-up, Erika. I think you did a great job kind of keeping us up to speed on what's going on at Town Hall, and we appreciate what you're doing on behalf of the community. So,
Exactly.
thank you so much for having me today.
We'll have you back. And with that, we're going to take a short break. And when we return, Erika is going to tell us what it's like to run the Manchester Cricket in this COVID-19 world. Stay with us.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19.
All right, welcome back to Scoop Manchester. I'm with Erika Brown. She's at the Cricket. And what I want to know is, what is it like trying to put a newspaper together in this environment? I mean, these are unprecedented times, Erika, we're living in. So how are you doing this?
It's been kind of a crazy ride. I mean, we were already going towards making these steps towards becoming more and more online. We're starting to separate the content of saying what needs to be on the website on the cricket.com as opposed to what deserves to be in print. And really we're focused on print and then putting out the content online simultaneously. Well, guess what? With COVID, that flipped. And suddenly we were putting out content online first because it was practical local information that people really needed to know, and they needed it to know right now. So, well, another thing we're launching just this week is on our website. If people go to thecricket.com, we have a dedicated COVID-19 section now with updated local news and information. It's got all the latest virus numbers, and then it also has the hard links to the critical things that people really need, like to local town resources, the boards of health, public safety, and of course, public business assistance. So, our traffic on our website went through the roof. That apparently is very, very typical across the country. Local papers and local news outlets are just having this surge of interest and readership and content because people, it's funny, they get their COVID information on, the national news, like CNN, MSNBC or Fox, right? Or the networks, whatever. But then they really, once they have that, they kind of turn off from that and they start looking super local. What's open? When is it open? How is it open? What do I do about town news? What are the rates in my town of positive cases? What should we be doing with social distancing? All that stuff. So that actually happened like that for us in terms of just making that big jump to going digital first. And then we have the opportunity to do things a little more in depth, or maybe looking back in history in an interesting way, something that's just a little more contemplative for the printed piece, because the truth is that goes right into your home and people are reading now more than ever. They're doing puzzles, they're reading, and they're watching Netflix.
That's really interesting. But as a reporter, I mean, normally you're going to the Board of Selectmen meetings. Now they're virtual. You're covering out in the community events. They're not happening. So how does that all play into how you are able to come up with stories other than COVID?
I think it's funny, for the first couple of weeks, I think the entire community was in this sort of kind of this stunned moment of just being focused on COVID. So the first couple of issues were really news centric around this, what do we need to know in terms of utility, practical information. But then starting last issue, we started to have things that felt a little more featurey. There's a great story that we ran on the front page. It felt very much like the Cricket, which was this effort over in Essex about sort of coming out with patterns for how to create your own masks. And it really came from the wife of an emergency room doctor at Mass General who literally had this horrifying, they had to to engage this horrifying reality of not having enough personal protective equipment. She had to shave his head so that could be he could disinfect himself much easier in between patients. And that was a great story. So it's more features now as opposed to covering events. That said, events are now starting to happen. They're just happening in a more virtual way.
Right.
The 375th, celebration for the town, the last event was a virtual one. The Manchester Historical Museum did its Manchester 101 lecture virtually, and now it's being positioned.
Talk about sort of cricket coverage. I know like you have COVID-19 tips, like the basics, like wash your hands for 20 seconds, those kinds of tips that we have to keep remembering to stay safe, social distancing. But you also have an interesting article about the fact that this is not new news to Manchester. 100 plus years ago when the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic happened, this was front page news in the cricket back then. So you've done a story about that. Tell us about that.
That was a really interesting piece, and it was a result of us now having a digital archive that we can actually go into and sort of really examine closely.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, we have it, I'd encourage anybody to go online and read it. If you look at the articles from 1918 and 1919, the town hall closed, the school closed, there was social distancing, there was sheltering at home. It reads with such a striking way as something that could be today.
There's a lot of unfortunate with the flu, what's going on. We're seeing a lot of loss of lives, and it's tough. But we're all going to get through this and move forward. And I want to shift gears because when we do Scoop Manchester, I always ask you to tell me 3 things. If you can pick out sort of a favorite story you've covered recently, secondly, your favorite picture in the cricket recently, and finally, your favorite police note, because as much as police notes are always serious, there are always some humorous ones too. So let's start with your favorite story that you've recently covered.
I think one of the most, I just found it to be so fascinating and eye-opening was the last in-person lecture that was part of the 375th series was at the Sacred Heart Church with Mary Ellen LaPianca, who is a retired professor and a very accomplished archaeologist, and she is an expert on Cape Ann, the Native Americans on Cape Ann before us, before we all settled here. She gave the most interesting lecture on sort of the Cape Ann, the residents of Cape Ann before Europeans got here, and it was just so interesting, and Masconomo and everything. That was a great story. We really enjoyed doing that. I think my favorite picture, especially now that we're sort of in this social distancing, it's just not, we're at a different time. It's a different temperature right now. The Manchester resident, Maria Parisi, who lives in Midtown, has always taken these pictures. She has these sort of, she's a beautiful photographer, and she has taken pictures of pieces, like beautiful coastal scenes, but also little art pieces that she'll do on a beach. And we actually ran one this past week, but the whole series of images I really enjoyed. And so those are great.
Yeah. Of course, I have to say, Maria Parisi, go class of 1980, Manchester Hornet. We were classmates and had a lot of good times. In fact, I walked the beach a lot. I can't wait to be back on Singing Beach. All of us can't wait for that moment. And you just walk to the beach and you see her beautiful sand art, very spiritual, very calming, always with a positive message. And that's really what we need right now, is a lot of that sort of focusing our energy on positive and enjoying Mother Nature as best we can. It's great being with you. And again, I look forward to being back in Manchester by the sea.
We miss you. We want you back.
I know, but in the meantime, we're going to keep Zooming together and keep our community posted. And you stay safe and healthy. And thank you for all you're doing, getting the cricket out every week to help the community all kind of stay together. All right.
All right,
Erika Brown. I'm Liz Brown Swan with Scoop Manchester. And again, I hope everyone has a healthy, happy day. Be safe out there. Thanks for joining us.